resellers, MSPs, and other managed service providers come to us and say, we really love what you do as an MSP, and we want to build our MSP offerings around your infrastructure. We would like your secure network. We would like your DDoS protection services. We would like your tier 4 data center, but we'd like to manage all the services. So they realize that they can't own and operate their own data center. And if they want to operate an MSP business, then they want to make sure that their infrastructure is as safe and secure as possible. Hi, James Braunegg from Micron21, and you're watching the Data Center Go-to-Market podcast.
Hi, it's Joshua Feinberg from the Data Center Go-to-Market podcast, and I'm thrilled to welcome a very special guest. I have joining with me today James Braunegg, who is Managing Director of Micron21 in Melbourne, Australia. James, welcome to the podcast.
Josh, thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to join on this podcast.
It's a pleasure to have you here as well. And I think a super interesting place to start is when I was originally learning about your background, I thought it quite remarkable that there's a family business connection to your origin story. So
very much.
I would love to learn more about how you originally conceived the idea for Micron21, how you got from high school to university and launching this business and where you are today.
Yeah, sure. So look, my career in IT started at a very young age. Year 8 in high school, I had a passion for computers and started my first business, basically reselling and creating computers for fellow students in schools. I did very well in high school, made a lot of money with my first business, Firestorm Australia. And that allowed me to get into medicine at Monash University. I then took my, the money that I created during high school and basically bought my first car. And I then learned to hack that car computer to make that car go faster. That went on to basically creating a new business that we took all around the world, allowing us to tune high performance cars, and then taking not only the computer, but then selling exhaust systems and superchargers, all whilst maintaining, my ability and running an IT business, selling computers and building computers at the same time. I then ended up at the Alfred Hospital working on some anti-cancer drug design treatment. And my father turned around to me and said, "Can you please take over the family printing business?" And I said, "Well, here I have my car tuning business, where that is a global business. I have my manufacturing business where we manufacture go-fast bits for cars. I'm studying medicine and at the Alfred Hospital working on and building anti-cancer treatment drug development." And my father wanted me to take over his local printing business. So I said, "Look, that's fine. I'll let go of my career within the Alfred Hospital. I still would like to run my car businesses on the side." And I learnt basically what it was to create and run a printing company. Very quickly, we won a contract with Australia Post, and that allowed us to produce stamps for Australia. So we were one of 3 stamp printers. And one of the requirements a few years into the contract was not only did we need to have a very secure building, but the building needed to be directly connected to Australia Post via a high-speed fibre optic network. So we built a network which was about 45 kilometres of distance. We're based east side of Melbourne. And that network was built and justified by Australia Post with secure transmission. So we had a secure building in Melbourne, and we now own and operated our own dark fibre network, primarily for Australia Post. I then took a step back and said, well, I know a lot of people within the car industry, and I've been managing computers and servers for 10 odd years. And I said, what would it take for me to start a small little hosting company inside my father's printing business, based on the fact that he had a high amount of connectivity and a large amount of physical security, because we were producing stamps, which is a currency-based item. So off I went under the stairs of my father's building, and I grew a small little hosting company that we labelled Micron21. Micron21 stands actually for the size of the dot we used to put on the stamp, which was 21 microns in size. So we used, the fundamentals of being born from within inside a printing company to then create an IT technology company. That then allowed us to try to transition and morph from being a traditional communication company that sells ink on paper to being a digital communication company providing digital services to customers. So we grew and we grew and we grew, and eventually I grew out from my little box from under the stairs to a little job bag room, and that grew again. And then I started putting my foot in the realm of saying, well, I need a generator, I need a UPS, I need to create something special. And Micron21 was then launched publicly. The success of our business allowed us to continuously grow whilst the printing industry kind of kept on declining. And eventually I convinced my father to sell his business and decided to take over the entire building, knock down the entire building and build what is Australia's first Tier 4 data centre in Australia. And that's obviously where I am today, something I'm very, very proud of. I've got a passion for high availability, for continuous cooling, continuous power, and everything related from physical security, electronic security, cybersecurity, AI, around providing mission critical services for people that require the very best of the best internet services.
Wow, that's super fascinating. I knew about the family printing business. I didn't realize the family printing business had this super exclusive, valuable contract with Australia Post that led to building all of this infrastructure. So from a social proof standpoint, and then on top of that, you have a built-in client base of businesses, presumably some of which would need hosting and some kind of IT services at some point out of the printing business.
Some of our clients, even back in the days, were Adidas and Mizuno and high-end, I guess, brands that we were doing digital print for, ink on paper, and that actually then transformed to then hosting their data as well. So it was actually a great relationship and allowed us to really secure some high-end clients, even though in the early days we were a small little room inside a printing company. It wasn't until later in 2019 where we really created and launched our first Tier 4 data center that gave us that point of difference of building something completely special. With that said, when we built the facility, we were still in the same building. So we built the first Tier 4 data center with live workload. So what that meant was we couldn't just turn off the power, we couldn't turn off the internet, we couldn't turn off the network. We had to build around a live environment and physically migrate people's workload around a construction site. And we did so without zero interruptions to the end user.
So yeah, it's a really fascinating use case. Were you keeping your PC building business going at the same time, or is that more earlier on?
That stopped. Look, when I was basically based at the Alfred Hospital, I kind of stopped the PC side of things. So I haven't done that for a few years, but that was where I really started from. I used to take off every second Friday from high school, go down to the local wholesalers, and then bring back hardware. And it was quite funny. Even the school knew I was taking the time off, and somehow they didn't mind because they were getting cheap computer parts.
And I did the same thing probably quite a bit earlier, back in the 1990s, had a system builder business, originally a little more retail and higher ed and K-12 focused, and then pivoting more into small and medium-sized business. And that really is, if you think about the family tree, that's where the whole managed service provider business model comes from, which is the line of sight to more than likely connecting the dots on managed services and colocation.
Yeah, I think that's probably why I have that passion for managed services. We are a data center, but we are also a managed service provider. And that creates a unique position in the services that we provide. And I've always enjoyed dealing directly with solving the problems for the end user.
Yeah, and so in addition to having that IT background and having the background of working with the printing clientele, the small businesses and the government account, had some exposure to healthcare.
Yeah.
And then
also
high performance cars, HPC. Right. Before high performance computing, there was high performance cars.
And look, I look at it and I go, well, how do you know your way around a diesel generator? I'm like, because I've been tuning cars for 20 years of my life. Okay, it's a diesel, not a petrol-based engine, but it still has a computer, it still has valves, it still has injectors, it still needs fuel. So I found it very easy to come from a mechanical background of understanding what it took to build, high performance drag race cars, to building high performance, highly resilient data centers.
So that gives you immediate street cred and expertise in being able to approach anyone and possible for that in the automotive space of where they're going to co-locate.
For many years, we actually, one of our first clients, believe it or not, was actually Nissan Australia, where we looked after their entire online presence, and that flowed into Nissan New Zealand as well. So yeah, that made it extremely easy to work with people in the automotive industry because I already knew them, and we had something quite special, and we still do today.
So, James, if you think back to where you first got started when you were in university, before you were even contemplating going into medical school, do you get students that approach you from time to time and ask for advice on careers in and around IT infrastructure and data centers, especially ones that are a little less technical, that are curious about these client-facing jobs?
Yeah, look, definitely. I think actually I've done a number of lectures at a couple of local universities and TAFEs, and I always get then inspiring students coming up to me going, can I learn more? In fact, two of our current staff members came from two different lectures that I gave, where they were inspired around what we were doing as a business and how I presented myself. So look, I definitely believe in helping the youth of the world be educated about, I guess, the data center industry. And it is such a small industry, but it is not filled with young talent. So when young talent have an interest and especially reach out to me, I love that opportunity to be able to teach and educate them, to show them the wonderful world of what operating, running, creating a managed service / data center business can be. Because the youth of today is really the success of us tomorrow. And if we don't help empower and provide meaningful help and information for the youth of today, then where is the industry going to be left tomorrow?
So in that situation, as you're sitting down and having lunch or coffee with someone, what advice would you offer to them if they're interested in pursuing that kind of career?
Look, I think in today's world, look, you cannot escape the two-letter word AI. But with AI comes a lot of challenges around sustainability and being a green facility, connectivity, cybersecurity. There is such a huge demand for IT professional services in the data center world. And I think if you have a passion for engineering, then people want to be able to build resilient data centers. If you've got a passion for programming or I guess on the IT side of things, then AI is just absolutely changing the world. And then the whole challenge of sustainability as we consume more and more power as an industry. How do we create sustainable green data centers that are carbon neutral, that are not helping deteriorate the world, but at least keeping it on par of where we are today? And so there's a huge amount of variance of where someone would like to enter the industry, and you don't necessarily need to have that bit of paper to join the data center world. It's not the medical world that I've come from, but there is definitely key people around Australia and around the world that will educate and help train young professionals to become truly successful within this industry.
Yeah, that's a really interesting development in the last 5 or 10 years also, is employers just becoming a lot more open to considering candidates without formal degrees in IT or even formal degrees in general that are coming right out of high school.
I think it's really if a potential staff member or student or someone young has the right mentality, you can teach them the technology. We're not talking about them being an electrical engineer designing switchboards or putting their hands inside an electrical cabinet. We're talking about the fundamentals of what it takes to operate a data center. And a data center should be designed not for a highly professional person to operate, but you've got to build fail-safes. So someone who's uneducated just needs to push a simple button or follow a simple procedure. And that's where getting a design of a facility correct is super important, because the simpler it is, then the less mistakes a human could possibly make to that facility. In fact, one of the number one issues of data centers having downtime is not the equipment failing, it's people not following the correct procedure.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Actually, one of the bigger critiques, especially in the US, as data centers continue to expand and there's consumption of scarce resources, is but there's not a lot of jobs being created because there's so much automation in place. But at the same time, you constantly hear about a shortage of skilled talent and all these unfilled jobs.
And I think, look, right now we see data centers as big warehouses full of compute capacity, storage, GPUs, and so forth. I think what will happen in time will be, the traditional data center will transition into more services that's where you'll see more humans being involved to deliver those services, because not all of those services can be automated. Core infrastructure, sure, but as your traditional co-location provider looks to provide more than just co-location, GPU in a box or AI in a box, the level of staff or knowledge within that business is going to be more than just pushing a button or maintaining infrastructure.
Basically, as an IT services business that happens to also have a co-location facility, right?
Very much so. With that said, though, the physical infrastructure still needs to be maintained, and there's two ways of going about it. You can either maintain the equipment yourself, or you can rely on the vendor to come and maintain the equipment, or you can escort the vendor, right? So how many stories have you heard where the vendor has come in and, John, the new employee for that vendor's come into a site, never been there, and pushes the wrong button? And stuff like that should never occur. So I think making sure that facilities escort vendors when they're doing maintenance is a really important aspect to make sure that mistakes don't occur within the facility management of the building.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. So, James, that's really interesting insights for someone who's really early on in their career. Curious, too, about what advice you'd offer to someone who's more mid-career. Maybe it's someone that you worked with 10, 15 years ago, used to be pretty close. You haven't seen them in a while. You bump into them at an event and you sense that they're a little bit burned out and are trying to figure out over the course of having lunch, breakfast, they're looking for advice on how to get their career back on track, staying in something related to managed services, co-location, digital infrastructure, a little less on the technical side, more in these client-facing jobs. What advice would you have for him or her on how to get back on track?
Yeah, look, great question. I think, like any industry, or like most industries, or most industries that are growing, the demand and continuous evolving of our industry is doing nothing but slowing down. So every day there is new technology. Every day there's something new being developed and being pushed, and you just have to be looking at that emerging technology to understand that you can pivot very, very, very quickly. If you are an expert in managing power, then try and manage the power of GPUs. When you've got hundreds or thousands of GPUs scaling up and scaling down, how do you account for 100 amps of power per rack being turned on and turned off? How do you solve that from an engineering point of view? So I think as technology really evolves, new challenges arise very, very quickly. So I think by putting your head in the sand and saying we're in a boring, slow industry, then you don't have the right mentality. And I think by helping someone that is stuck within, I guess, a business that's not moving forward, you just really need to look at what's happening within the world. Data centers are being built faster. They're being built with more capacity and with more demand. And we've never been in a time when the data center as an industry has had so much recognition against the world from a global media point of view. So, you can pivot from being a power expert to being a GPU expert very, very quickly with reference to infrastructure. You can pivot from being a power expert to going into sustainability. How do you build and manage sustainable data centers? How do you pivot and go from, I used to engineer a data center for 2 kilowatts a rack. How do I support 20, 30, 40, 100, 200 kilowatts? Every vendor under the sun is coming up with a new UPS, a new way to cool the data center, whether it be immersion cooling, whether it be liquid cooling, whether it be fan wall units, whether it be chilled water, whether it be DX. There's numerous forms of technology coming out from the vendors. So really, I would encourage anyone who is feeling dormant within this industry just to open their eyes, have a look what's occurring globally, pick something that excites you and grab onto it, because we're on a massive fun roller coaster where the world is consuming IT resources more and more every single day. And literally you just have to grab on and let's go for a ride.
Yeah, that's really interesting to look at what their strongest suits are and what potentially solves an immediate need specifically around the most in-demand challenges right now with power and cooling, right?
Yeah.
James, when you look at your peers, when you look at other data center operators in your region, across Australia, across Asia Pacific, even globally, what are you doing a little different, and what do you see some of the big mistakes that others are making in the industry that you wish they would approach quite differently?
Look, the biggest thing I probably see is the late adaptation to new trends. People often go, "Oh, that's just going to be a new fab," and they don't embrace the new technology now. And by the time someone looks at that technology and go, "Oh, it actually is a trend," they're already 12 months behind where they should be. So I think understanding that we're in a technology business that is moving rapidly, and making sure that as a business you really take note of emerging trends and steer your business towards those emerging trends as soon as possible, because you're better to steer yourself against an emerging trend than be left behind. If you're not thinking about liquid cooling today, if you're not thinking about AI, if you don't have a strategy, you're 12, 24 months behind the leaders in the industry right now. And it becomes very, very, very hard to catch up, because those that have 12, 24 months ahead of you are just going to be so much forward from a service and operational point of view.
Do you feel sometimes that's a little bit challenging being able to keep up with all of these macro trends as the entrepreneur, owner, operator who wears a lot of different hats, or is it actually easier because you don't have a rigid set of organizational chart or bureaucracy or all kinds of different agendas internally as to what gets prioritized?
Yeah, look, we still have challenges internally, being, that there's only so much we can do. And I see as a larger organization, you'd have more red tape. But at the end of the day, you really need to make sure that you've got at least 2 key people within your organization continuously looking for continuous improvement. What can we do next? Going through the thought bubble, doing a proof of concept, working out what should be done. And as long as you are continuously investing in new technology and not just waiting for it to land on your lap, I think that's a step in the right direction. Realizing for a business to survive, you have to continuously adapt to the trends. And you won't get them all right, but as long as you get most of them right, then you're going to be much better than anyone else.
The Data Center Go-to-Market podcast is sponsored by DCSMI, elevating the role of sales, marketing, and go-to-market GTM professionals in the growth of the data center industry. To stay informed about upcoming episodes, make sure that you subscribe to the Data Center Sales and Marketing newsletter on the DCSMI website that can be found at www.dcsmi.com. Again, that URL is www.dcsmi.com.
So with that in mind, you mentioned 2 people, as a CEO, as a CTO, is it technology, is it facilities, how do you organize, and how does Micron organize in terms of its team?
I see it as they're technologists. So look, potentially a CTO, but a CTO is really, at the top end of scale. You really need someone to be able to do that market research, to understand what's happening across the world, to understand what vendors are releasing, what companies are being consumed or being brought out by others. Last year we saw the Broadcom acquiring VMware, and what an amazing experience that's been for people within the VMware bubble, of seeing how that Broadcom movement has now changed the entire virtualization industry for life. But we knew the Broadcom acquisition was coming 12 months, 16 months before it actually occurred. So, those businesses that started to pivot 24 months ago are very, very well positioned in today's market. And those businesses that are holding on to the fact that, Broadcom will be okay and the prices won't rise and everyone's going to keep using the product, are still kind of jaded in their approach. So having someone to be able to look at technology and be able to predict where it moves is super important. And for us within Micron, we have two key people that are basically in that continuous improvement department. Their sole goal is to improve everything that we do, whether it be from a system infrastructure point of view, whether it be from an infrastructure point of view. What can we invest in and where should we invest in? And then they present that back to my board, and then we evaluate, that's a good one, that's a bad one. And we have that choice to be able to, at a high level, understand, where would we like to go as a business.
And then how does that flow down to how you have the Micron21 organized in terms of your teams and different people in different roles?
Yeah, so look, from a company structure point of view, we have your typical board, advisory board, but then we have different departments outside of our innovation department. We have network and security, we have cybersecurity, we have our systems and security operations center, and then your level 1, level 2, level 3 supports, sales and marketing. One of our largest departments, due to, I guess, our rapid growth, is actually that sales and marketing team, because in today's world, if you're not being seen as a market leader, then you'll get left behind as well, equally.
It actually brings up a really interesting question that I talk with a lot of operators, a lot of colocation businesses about, is when you think about what you do with go-to-market for sales and marketing, do you primarily have your base local, like within a 30 to 60-minute drive of your facility? Do you market nationally? Do you market globally? Do you have different playbooks for each? What's been your focus so far? Where do you see yourself growing most going forward?
So look, I think you should never focus on a single vertical. For us, we do local very well. We are very much that local data center to our immediate area. I sit on the business advisory board for local councils, advising local businesses around trends of technology. And local for me is a huge passion, because I love giving back to the local community. In fact, the community is so strong that during COVID, I built a 100 gigabit fiber optic network covering all my local businesses to provide them a cost-effective 100 gigabit internet access for $80 a month, which is a hundredth of the price that it should be. But we decided to give back to the community, because here we are, a data center in a local community, and why not provide what most businesses require, high-speed internet access. That being said, there's only so much local you can do. So the local area for us then spreads into Melbourne. 60% of our customers are based in Victoria. Then we spread out across Australia, but we still deal with international clients as well. So whether it's clients in Germany, whether it be clients in Europe, America, we touch the entire world. But the presence is definitely, or our strength is basically providing sovereign Australian services to Australian businesses.
Do you have a proactive strategy for the non-Australian business? In other words, is there dedicated team members who just focus on demand generation and running virtual sales process and basically selling long distance, or do you largely allow a lot of that just to happen on its own organically?
Yeah, look, we don't have a dedicated international sales representative or business development. I think the days of business development managers are definitely, especially at that large scale, are numbered. I think automation, organic growth, SEO, Google AdWords if you must, but the consumers are really educating themselves through research online. They know what they want. before they come knocking on your door. And that is the most important factor, where they're finding you. You're not really seeking them out from an opportunity point of view. But therefore, you need to be found. You need to have content. You need to be a market leader within what you do. I had an interesting phone call, a sales lead, only 2 days ago, and the gentleman put into ChatGPT, I'm using F5 load balancers. I no longer want to use them. Who can provide me an enterprise-grade load balancing product? And Micron21 came up. Now, that's because we have a lot of content around providing enterprise load balance services. So he picks up the phone and we're talking away. And look, very quickly, I knew that he wasn't after a service. He was trying to actually buy the platform that we provide. And we use A10 as a vendor for our load balancer, at least our high level load balancing. And we came up as the A10 content delivery experts, and he wanted to buy the product from me. And I'm like, well, look, I'd love to provide you the product. I'll sell you the service, but what you really need to do is go to speak to Ingram Micro, go speak to the distributors and consume and buy the product yourself. If you need any help and service setting up the environment, happy to help you. And then he learned more around that conversation around who we were as a business. He goes, if I ever need any cloud services, I'm absolutely coming back to you, James. And he was very thankful that I was able to pass on the correct information. But that just shows that ChatGPT and all these AI engines are really reliant on the content. And if you're not seen out there, then you're going to be invisible. And if the end user is searching online, because that's what they all do, if you don't come up in that search, then you're as good as dead.
Yeah, we're seeing the exact same thing. It's really interesting that a year or two ago, people were running around with the sky is falling moment that as AI Essentials, I forget what the name of it was a year ago, we're going to gradually start taking away more traditional search engine real estate, that SEO wasn't going to be a great playbook anymore. And for sure, Google definitely has lost some share organically, but we're seeing the exact same thing. We're seeing inbound leads coming in, and it's Perplexity, or it's Copilot, or it's ChatGPT, just as if instead of Google having 80-90% market share, there was 5, 6, 7 different search engines, of which in my 20 plus years in digital, I don't remember a time when it was really ever more than a 2-horse race.
Yeah. You would have remembered Alta Vista back in the days.
Yeah. Alta Vista, InfoSeek, Yahoo used to be pretty significant, right? MSN.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah. So that's all super. That's a really interesting leading indicator as well of how people are searching for answers, searching for their goals, searching their challenges, and landing on your doorstep. I'm curious, as a managed service provider and someone that's really deeply entrenched in your local community, are you involved in other channel partner programs? Do you have channel partners? How do you think about that part of the ecosystem?
So look, channel partners, we deal as, I guess, resellers. We don't have a direct channel market because I guess, like many things, it's on our to-do list. But for us, resellers, MSPs, and other managed service providers come to us and say, we really love what you do as an MSP, and we want to build our MSP offerings around your infrastructure. We would like your secure network. We would like your DDoS protection services. We would like your tier 4 data center, but we'd like to manage all the services. So they realize that they can't own and operate their own data center. And if they want to operate an MSP business, then they want to make sure that their infrastructure is as safe and secure as possible. And they realize by partnering with Micron21 that provides them the safe and security they require, so they don't need to worry about the backend infrastructure. With that said, we have also just launched our mCloud platform, which is our answer to our VMware alternative platform, which competes directly with the Amazons of the world, the Azures of the world, the Google Cloud. And that we absolutely have both a reseller and a channel product to allow people to completely and utterly white label our environment, because people are looking for alternative answers. And channel is an important part of the business because we can't reach all the customers. We don't have the relationship with all of the customers. But if we have a partner that has the relationship, business is done in knowledge well from an information point of view, but it's also done from having that relationship with those end users.
So essentially, they're becoming an extension of your marketing and your sales and your services, and you're becoming an extension of their tech stack, the overall solution that they can provide, the single point of contact for their clients.
Definitely.
That's super interesting as well. And we're talking about the LLM tools, the chat GPTs. How have you found AI impacting your daily routines in leading and growing a company like Micron21?
Look, I think 2 years ago when the world was like, oh my God, what's this AI thing? It would have been, it was interesting, but what we're seeing is a dramatic increase of people relying on these tools. At first it was nice to be able to ask, something like, using an AI tool to ask it a basic question and it giving you a meaningful answer. But now you've got models that are just continuously evolving. More importantly, you've got the whole DeepSeek versus ChatGPT versus using GPU compute versus using CPU capacity. Who consumes more or less power? But people or organizations are realizing the power that AI model can deliver to their business. Where I think the business is actually pivoting, though, is every business wants to build their own AI platform because they don't want to let go of that data. However, not everyone can afford multi-million dollars worth of GPU or CPU hardware to power these models. So as the world is consuming more and more technology, AI, it is morphing extremely quickly to be able to provide more meaningful kind of results. 2 years ago, you could ask ChatGPT a simple question. Today, you can ask it to provide a complete go-to-market sales marketing strategy. And it does a very good job at doing just that because it has that rationalization to be able to do its own research and think about the answer before it provides. And that's the version today. The next version will have more features yet again and again. And we're going to have this continuous improvement where the AI today is going to be nothing like the AI models tomorrow. It is only going to get better from here on in. And the speed of technology releasing new features is only speeding up. So it's going to be something where if you're not using AI today, then really either in your business or personal, you're really missing out on the opportunities to help automate certain parts of your life. But not only will it be doing the automation side, I see it transitioning into doing much more in the future.
A traditional colocation operator would usually specialize in infrastructure, and it would be relatively unusual for them to go out to clients' premises to provide on-site type of support, on-site infrastructure. Do you typically get involved in line of business type of applications? Do you provide that classic MSP, fractional CTO, anything and everything having to do with IT, or are you primarily focused just on infrastructure?
Look, we definitely do in that traditional MSP. We do partner with a number of other MSPs because a lot of my staff are on site within the data center. So to send them out becomes, I guess, more of a challenge for trying to optimize time. Within our local area, look, if they're 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, then traveling to them is not a problem. But partnering with other MSPs across Australia makes it very easy because they've got local feet on the ground. But what we are definitely finding is being that thought leader for businesses because most businesses have that challenge and be able to provide them advice and steer them in the right direction. Are you an on-prem customer with on-prem infrastructure? Are you looking to move to the cloud? Do you need better communication? What's your cybersecurity policy? And because we deal with those issues all day, then we become that expert very quickly to be able to help provide free consulting advice back to organizations that require it. And I think gone are the days where you're a salesperson. You as an organization need to be an educator back to your clients. Clients want to consume information. Clients want to consume your content, and it has to be meaningful. And if you can deliver the right content and the right education to fellow businesses, then you're naturally going to be selected as a possible option for them as they look for a solution.
Yeah, it's really interesting as well, because 20 years ago, when I used to have these conversations with MSPs and VARs and IT consultancies, a lot envied how good of a relationship small business owners had with their accountants or their attorneys, and they wanted to solidly entrench themselves as a trusted advisor. And here we are 20 years later, where the self-guided buyer's journey is now the dominant buyer's journey. So much is happening in a self-service fashion. People are so sales allergic that it's rare that you're getting to talk to someone until they're very far along. And the unlock to get the foot back in the door is, once again, education, content and events.
If you don't have an online calculator that allows your potential customer to be able to tick and turn on and turn off different boxes, then you're being left behind. People want a quote, people want that information. And I see many organizations, it's like, well, contact us. The end user doesn't want to contact you. They just want to know that information. Are you $1 a month? Are you $1,000 a month for that service? Are you in the ballpark of what we should be looking for an organization? So trying to be as transparent as you can and giving potential customers all the tools they require on a self-driven journey helps you capture whichever target market you're looking for.
Yeah, I think the days of prospects having patience to fill out a form and wait a day or two, and then another day or two after that to find out ballpark ideas of what something's cost, are long. 20 years of buying on Amazon, 20 years of ride-sharing services, 20 years of self-booking flights, ordering groceries. People just expect that. Call it the like in the Willy Wonka movie with Veruca Salt. Don't care how, but I want it now. And it's that instant gratification is very real.
Yeah, look, I think the Amazon of the world have done it, again, very well for a very long time. They came from the Amazon model to all of a sudden you can consume cloud by sliding a few sliders on a web page and click launch now. That's the exact same experience that we have within our cloud platform. And if you don't have that ability, whether it be for cloud, whether it be for colocation, whether it be for DDoS protection, it doesn't matter what product you have. You need to be able to provide not just product information, but real-time price information, because the buyer of a traditional co-location facility, they know how much space they require. They know their power requirements. They know they need cross connections. They know they need transit. What they just don't know is the price.
Yeah. And a lot of times they're doing research on weird hours. And more than likely you have some crew and knock 7/24, 365, but your salespeople for sure are not going to take a call 2 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock on a Sunday on a holiday weekend or something like that. So just a lot of times people are doing this research because their downtime is in the evenings and weekends.
Yeah, well, it's even more rewarding when you have a sales opportunity come through to you where they said, well, I've consumed your content, I've learned about your product, and now I'd like you to deliver the solution. I do a lot of posting on IT forums still. Again, just helping out, end users with solving their IT problems. But the amount of referrals I get from there by basically, providing a solution for person A, but person B, C, D, E, F all have the same problem. And they come to us and say, you've helped out person A, can you do the same for me? And it involves a little bit of time to be able to provide support for the community. But the rewards definitely outweigh the time and effort.
You're basically doing public consulting, which is a proof of concept and a great demo, and they get to you and they're already educated and the trust is already there, and it accelerates things dramatically. You got alignment. It's a great thing.
And these are, the differences that are really important in today's world. How are you a standout business? How are you different than your competitors? And it's the way you approach the market.
James, the final area I want to get your thoughts on is when you look into your crystal ball and you think about how Micron21 may be changing in the next 2, 3, 4 years, think about how your clients' businesses may be changing in the next 2, 3, 4 years. What do you envision your future role looking like with the 2 to 4 year time horizon out from now?
Look, for us, we'll continue providing end user services or MSP services. They are a huge part of our business, and they're a huge differentiator because we're not just your typical co-location provider. We are a managed service provider that owns and operates a tier 4 data center within Australia, that operates the 3rd largest network in Australia, that has a global presence. And for us, we'll continue to do well in providing the exact services that the end users need. So, today it's providing VMware alternatives, providing cloud platforms. We're seeing the massive rise of people wanting to build their own GPU platforms. So we're building a GPU in a box platform where people can have the resilience of knowing that their data is not shared across any other infrastructure other than infrastructure dedicated to them. And that becomes an important aspect of keeping data both local, safe, and secure. I think co-location will never disappear. Data centers are absolutely going to never disappear. But the way the end user consumes those services absolutely will. We will need more space, we will need more power, we will need more cooling, and we will need more data centers. And I think as you look at edge, you look at where facilities are based, latency will become highly important. Cybersecurity will become equally as important. How do you secure an AI model? How do you secure what it learns and it doesn't learn? And it's going to be a very interesting landscape moving forward because we're moving at an incredibly fast pace.
It's fascinating, and it sounds like you have a really strong product manager mindset as well, with being really close to your clients, listening for what they're saying they need and anticipating what they're going to need that they may not even be verbalizing yet. Yeah, look, you're not selling as a data center. You're no longer selling space. If you think you still are, then space is long gone. What you're providing the customer is a solution. James, if someone wants to reach out to you, connect with you, learn more about Micron21, is LinkedIn the best place to start?
Absolutely. Yeah, look, if you're international, LinkedIn, add me, follow me. If you're local, come say hi. Love to show you around my facility. Love to show you, and even if you are a data center operator traveling to Australia, or you have an interest on power cooling, I've got no problems showing you what we've built, how we've built it, and would love to interact with anyone that has a passion for data centers.
That's awesome. And I'll be sure to include the links to your LinkedIn, your company page, your website as well. And it's a very, very natural call to action for anyone that's local, that's able to come visit and take the tour. And
Josh, if you're ever in Australia, please, please, please come say hi in person.
I for sure will. I've been speaking today with James Braunegg, who is Managing Director of Micron21 in Melbourne, Australia. Thanks so much for joining me today, James. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Josh.
The Data Center Go-to-Market podcast is sponsored by DCSMI, elevating the role of sales, marketing, and go-to-market GTM professionals in the growth of the data center industry. To stay informed about upcoming episodes, make sure that you subscribe to the Data Center Sales and Marketing newsletter on the DCSMI website that can be found at www.dcsmi.com. Again, that URL is www.dcsmi.com.